English Story C1 Pursue the Dream. Welcome to Lovely English Stories. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to share our stories with your friends. This story is perfect for advanced learners. Let's begin. Jacky has always had an overactive imagination. Her thoughts run away with her into different worlds. Some days she's in a mystical land, others she's in an Edwardian village. Sometimes she's on a beach where she sunbathes with sun-kissed skin. Having a creative imagination can have its ups and downs. Jacky often gets bored and finds herself becoming easily distracted. At school, she was often told off by her teachers for looking out of the window or for scribbling in her notebook instead of listening to the class. This continued into adulthood. At university, lecturers would point out that she was daydreaming and not paying attention to what they were saying. They were right, of course. Jacky often lived in another world. She found she was happier that way. She could create any scene, language, character, or place that she wanted. At college, Jacky had studied English literature and, to her surprise, she gained the top grade of anyone in her year. She excelled at English. The same can't be said for maths, which she failed 3 times. But persistence paid off, and she eventually scraped a C. After college, Jacky decided to pursue creative writing at university, much to her parents' dismay. They wanted her to do something more useful, but to Jacky, there was nothing more useful than getting her imaginary worlds and characters out of her head and onto paper. She liked to share her stories with others and watch their faces as the storylines unfolded. She has loved this feeling ever since she was a little girl. Even as a child, she would write stories and poems and enter them into local writing competitions. She won a few times and was spurred on to keep trying different genres and writing techniques. By the time she had to decide her university choices, Jacky realised she didn't want to study at just any old place. She wanted to develop her skills surrounded by successful writers who had won prestigious awards. As the saying goes, surround yourself with those on the same mission as you. She wanted to be a professional writer one day. What better way to start than learning from the best? She aimed high and she got into her university of choice. Her 3-year course was world-renowned. Jacky felt a lot of pressure to perform, and she was concerned that this might hinder her development. She tried to keep a level head and get on with things. She wouldn't let other people's expectations or ego impact her progress. In Jacky's 2nd year of uni, she decided to join the creative writing class. Finally, she was surrounded by other people who had the same interests as her. She could talk about character and story arcs and not bore them to tears with her theories about famous books. Everyone else in the group felt the same as her, that books and literature can change lives. Jacky's aim in life was to write a book that would help people drift off into a make-believe world, just like she had as a teenager. She wanted to be able to escort people on a journey through another person's life. By attending the writing group, Jacky was able to share her thoughts and ideas with like-minded people. They gave her constructive criticism and advice regarding her ideas and progress. Sometimes it was a little upsetting for her, especially if people thought her ideas were lame or didn't hold any real substance. But Jacky trusted their guidance. Some of the group had already published short stories and poems in well-known journals and magazines. She hoped to follow in their footsteps. During the summer between her second and third years at university, Jacky went back home and got a temp job in an office. She needed to get some money saved up for her final year. She wanted to be able to concentrate on her studies and not worry about where the money for rent was coming from. The job was soul-destroying. She called it the Office of Doom. It was grey, lifeless, and dull. She stuck it out by thinking of the money. It was easy work, and her work colleagues were nice enough. Luckily, her computer didn't face into the office, but instead faced towards the wall so no one could see what she was actually doing. This was an incentive for her. Every day, she worked extra fast to try and get all her tasks completed by 2 p.m. Then she had 3 hours to work on her new story. She was in the privileged position that she could see whenever someone was coming into the office. So when they did, she just opened another window which showed some spreadsheets. So, for 3 hours a day, for 3 months, she cracked on and wrote a story. She was chuffed with it too. One night, towards the end of her temporary contract, she stayed a little later to get some things done. But she wanted to use the printer without anyone watching her. She knew it was against the rules, but it was a huge company, and her colleagues were always using the equipment for their private matters. She waited until everyone had gone home and printed off her manuscript. She tried to use as little paper as possible. She set her printing to double-sided, single-spaced, and a small font. She just wanted to be able to proofread on paper, and she was going to ask her mum to double-check it for her. She knew she'd also prefer the old-fashioned way of reading from the page. It's old school, but it works. She set her book to print and waited around nervously. Any little noise made her senses extra alert. She needn't have worried. She managed to print off her work without a hitch. She couldn't wait to get home and start going through her manuscript. She knew there would be errors, grammar mistakes, and bizarre plot twists, but she was ready to take the criticism from her mum, who was also an avid reader. That night, Jacky gave the printout to her mum. At first, she seemed in shock. Perhaps she thought Jacky wouldn't do it, and she had proved her wrong. Her mum sat down at the dinner table with a cup of herbal tea and her favourite Parker pen and began making amendments, suggestions, and comments on her work. In total, it took her 5 days to fully edit the manuscript. She was honest with Jacky. She knew some of her comments might upset her, but she also knew that professional editors and literary agents would be much more critical. Jacky trusted her mother's opinion and got to work on making the amendments. She had 2 weeks before her final year at university started. She worked tirelessly on making her book a work of art. She crafted new characters, worked on setting scenes, and she created new voices. It really was a labor of love. After Jacky had finished editing the last page, she breathed a sigh of relief. She'd done it! She'd written her first book! Of course, it wasn't in book format just yet, but she hoped it would be one day. She saved her work on her memory stick, to her cloud, and on her laptop. She didn't want to risk losing it after she'd put such a lot of work into it. She decided to leave her book for a few weeks while she settled back into university life. It was a busy time. She had decided to move back into halls of residence, and so she was busy making friends, going to parties, and starting back at her creative writing class. Before Jacky knew it, it was almost the end of the first semester, and she had almost forgotten about her story. One evening, when Jacky was tidying her room, she found the edited manuscript and decided to pull up the final version on her laptop. It was better than she remembered. She couldn't just leave this piece of work gathering dust. She had to at least try and get it out there. She opened Google and started to search for writing competitions. She found a few that she met the requirements for and decided to give it a shot. As she clicked Submit on each submission, she got more and more nervous. She was shaking. There was something very personal about letting people read your work, and Jacky was nervous about the possible feedback she would get. On the other hand, she knew she had to learn to accept criticism and that all art is subjective. There'll always be someone who doesn't like what you do. Now, all Jacky had to do was play the waiting game. Most of the competitions didn't close until the new year, so she decided to not think any more of it, start a new story, and enjoy her Christmas holiday. February. Christmas went by without a hitch. Jacky had a great time catching up with friends and family. She all but forgot about the competition she'd entered. Then, out of the blue, she got an email from a big literary agent in London. At first, she assumed it was a newsletter, or perhaps a rejection. If she was lucky, she might even get some feedback. When she opened the email, she was completely taken aback. She had been shortlisted. Jacky and 4 other people had been chosen out of thousands of would-be writers. Jacky was shell-shocked. She couldn't believe it. She had been invited to the awards ceremony, which would take place in a month in London. The agency would pay for her travel and accommodation, and she was allowed to bring 1 other person with her. She could only think of one person she'd want to accompany her. Of course, it had to be her mum, who had spent hours ruthlessly editing Jacky's story and giving her honest and open feedback. Jacky decided to pay her parents a surprise visit and tell them in person. After all, she had no plans at the weekend and was up to date with writing her dissertation for university. She arrived at home and they were delighted to see her. Then they were suddenly concerned that something was wrong. Quite the opposite, laughed Jacky. She explained to her parents what had happened. They told her they were always so hard on her over the years, as they knew the industry could be tough, and they wanted her to be able to take the knockbacks. Well, now she could. Jacky's mum started worrying about what to wear and the logistics of getting to London. "Mum, all you need to worry about is your outfit. Everything else is covered." Before they knew it, it was time for the awards ceremony. Jacky and her mum travelled to London and checked in at their very lovely hotel. Jacky always loved to be in the capital. It inspired her. Jacky's mum didn't quite resonate with the city. She found it to be too brash and overpopulated. Nevertheless, they had a lovely time. The ceremony was incredibly glamorous. Jacky tried to keep her cool, even when she recognized some well-renowned authors and agents at the event. She was among the people she'd always wanted to call her peers. The time for the presentation came, and Jacky was a ball of nerves. Even if she didn't win, she was in the top 5 and would get a mentor from the agency to help her. If she came second, she would also get £10,000. But if she came first, she would get £25,000 plus a book deal. She was so close to her dreams coming true that she was struggling to keep it together. She took quiet, deep breaths, and her mum gently held her hand as the announcements were made. The presenter talked about each of the 5 books which had made it to the final and why they were chosen. The moment came for the winner and the runner-up prizes. Jacky wanted the earth to swallow her up. She wasn't used to being the centre of attention, and everyone was looking at each other in anticipation. Then, out of the blue, she heard her name announced. She had won the runner-up prize. Jacky stood motionless in shock. Her mum nudged her forward. "Go on, love. Get up on that stage and collect your prize." The next few hours rolled by in a complete blur. Jacky met so many people she couldn't keep track of their names. She had her photograph taken with so many successful authors. She felt like she was living in a dream world. Jacky wasn't sad that she hadn't won first place. She was happy she got this far. Runner-up was amazing. She would have £10,000, which meant she wouldn't have to rush to find a job straight out of university. She could take the time to hone her writing skills, develop her craft with her mentor, and hopefully secure a book deal in the future. All of this was proof to Jacky that even though she kept her talents hidden for so long, if you persist, keep trying, and take the feedback, you really can pursue your dreams. We hope you enjoyed this lovely English story. Thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe.